The good news today comes from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 9, verses 28 through 36. About 8 days after Jesus said this, he took Peter, John, and James with him and went up onto a mountain to pray. As he was praying, the appearance of his face changed, and his clothes became as bright as a flash of lightning. Two men, Moses and Elijah, appeared in glorious splendor, talking with Jesus. They spoke about his departure, which he was about to bring to fulfillment at Jerusalem. Peter and his companions were very sleepy, but when they became fully awake, they saw his glory and the two men standing with him. As the men were leaving Jesus, Peter said to him, "Master, it is good for us to be here. Let us put up 3 shelters, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." He did not know what he was saying. While he was speaking, a cloud appeared and covered them, and they were afraid as they entered the cloud. A voice came from the cloud saying, "This is my son, whom I have chosen. Listen to him." When the voice had spoken, they found that Jesus was alone. The disciples kept this to themselves and did not tell anyone at that time what they had seen. 650 feet. That is the depth in the ocean at which there is no light. Now, keep in mind, the average depth of the ocean is 14,000 feet. So there is a lot of ocean that no light gets to. But it is full of creatures. And a full 75% of all ocean creatures are bioluminescent. You know what that means, don't you? That means they glow from chemicals, not because of anything else, but some chemical compounds in their body that cause them to glow. Now, the biggest problem that scientists have found in trying to understand this is the inaccessibility of the oceans is first and foremost. They can't get down there to look at all of these animals. There's no way they can. And the other is these animals put off such a low amount of light that it can't be picked up by camera. Now, there's a reason for this. In total darkness, it doesn't take much light for the animals to see. It doesn't take much light for them to shine. And besides that, if they were bright enough for our eyes to see, then every critter down there could see them, and they'd be food, and they'd be eaten up. So what we're understanding is many sea-dwelling creatures glow. We just can't see it like they can see it. And of course, here on land, on dry land, it's pretty easy to know what animals glow. Name the number one thing you see. Fireflies, lightning bugs, that's right. We see them all the time. But you're missing the obvious. There is one in plain sight that we see every day that you don't even realize. You. Believe it or not, scientists have found that people glow. We just can't see that either. 1/1000th of a time that our eyes can even see it. But scientists have found you and I glow. Can you imagine that? Isn't that great? No need to take a flashlight out to check the cattle anymore. Just stand out there and man, you'll be able to see it all. Well, if your eyes were just a little bit better than that. Well, today is a special Sunday in the church. Today is the last Sunday of Epiphany. You guys remember Epiphany? Way back there a couple of months ago, Christmas time. Well, we're still in Epiphany. This is the last Sunday of that, which means it's the last Sunday before we start the Lent season. It is always Transfiguration Sunday. We hear this scripture every year. This is one that we preach on, but it is an important scripture. It is an important day in the life of the church because it was a turning point in Jesus' life and the disciples' life. It kind of set Jesus apart for the journey that he was about to take. And if you paid attention to the scripture here today, you would understand that Jesus was talking about these very things with Moses and Elijah and his father on that mountain that day. Peter, James, and John just got the benefit of being there, listening and hearing and beginning to put all the pieces together. But to really understand this scripture, we need to back up just a bit to the story before this. But verse 28 gives us the whole key to it. About 8 days after Jesus said this. 8 days. 8 days after what? What happened 8 days ago that brought all this about? And it's a pretty important scripture that I think all of us kind of remember, at least kind of remember the story in which Jesus asked his disciples, "Who do people say I am?" Well, it was a pretty important thing. Jesus was trying to dig up within themselves what they thought also. And of course the disciples spoke out. Well, some say you're John the Baptist. Some say Elijah. Some say one of the other prophets. Well, Jesus really wasn't too concerned about what other people thought he was, because then he got to the real question. And he asked his disciples, "Who do you say I am?" And it was then that Peter spoke up. And Peter said, "You are the Christ. You are the Messiah." And then Jesus began to tell his disciples all these things that would happen. He told them not to tell anyone, but he would be taken away. He would be crucified. He would have all kinds of terrible things happen to him. But on the third day, he says, he would come back from the dead. Well, now the cat was out of the bag. Now Jesus had fully explained to his disciples what was going to happen, all the things as to who he was, why he was on that earth. And from this point on, there was no turning back. He knew that they knew. He had told them clearly what was going to happen and to who he was. And now we're at 8 days after that story, and we find Jesus on the mountain. 8 days was plenty enough time for Jesus to put all of this through his mind, to let it stew just a bit. And Jesus was hurting. He felt like he was weak. He felt like he needed some strength to get through all of this. And so he asked Peter, James, and John to go up with him on the mountain on this particular day. Jesus knew exactly what was going to happen, and he knew that his disciples would need strength also. It was one of those times that was important in his life, a time of refreshing, renewal, strengthening, and it was on that mountain that Moses appeared. And I can just imagine what Peter, James, and John were thinking as they saw Moses. If you're paying attention to the other scriptures that we read today, Larry read the one from the Old Testament, and remember Moses went up on the mountain to receive the 10 Commandments, and when he came down, there was something strange about Moses. He was glowing, and the people were scared to death. And they asked Moses to cover his face because they could not stand seeing Moses glowing. I wonder what Peter, James, and John were thinking. I'm sure when they saw Moses, that whole story came rushing back into their mind. And they began to wonder about Moses himself. And then seeing Jesus glow, I'm surprised they didn't take off running down the mountain. But the scripture does not record that. They stayed put. And they realized that by hearing God, Jesus really was who he said he was. He really was going to do what he said he was going to do. And somehow they were at peace about that. And from that moment on, according to Luke 9:51, Jesus steadfastly set his face to go to Jerusalem. And folks, that's what the starting of this Lent season is all about. Us looking at Scripture, looking at Jesus, and him steadfastly setting his face and determining to make that decision to do on this earth exactly what God had required him to do. But folks, for you and I, we consider the amazing things that happen to us when we decide to follow Jesus. When we steadfastly determine to serve Him with all that we are. We glow. Now, kind of catch me here for just a minute. You've heard of people when they walk in the room and someone will make some comment like, man, when that person walks in the room, the whole place just glows. Or maybe this other comment, man, she just has a glow about her. I don't know what it is. I'm pointing to you, Sherry. We know those kind of comments. So how does that translate into us as Christian people? Moses glowed. He was in the direct presence of God, and he glowed. Jesus glowed. He was in the presence of God, and he shone brightly. Maybe that says something about our Christian lives. When we make this determination that above all else in our lives, we are going to serve God and serve Him alone, and we steadfastly, the word used by the Scripture there, to point our faces, unlike Jesus, to Jerusalem, but toward God, will we glow? Will there be something special about us that people will say, man, that's pretty amazing, that person there. They must really be close to God. I mean, wouldn't it be great if God, or if people said that about each one of us? Man, those people down there at that Methodist church in Liberty, man, they just have a glow about them. That'd be kind of cool, don't you think? If we would say that. Well, I believe, like what the scientists have found out, that all people glow. I believe that. John says this, John 1:4, in Him was life, and that life was the light of men. All people have the light in them of God. Some people are really good at suppressing it and keeping it hidden. Some people work their entire life to not let God shine in their lives. Other people are willing vessels. Some people like it to shine, but they kind of keep the dimmer switch on, you know? Like those light switches that kind of, you know, you turn down a little bit because, yeah, God, it's okay if I glow a little bit, but I don't want to get real bright on this stuff, okay? I mean, it's okay if people know kind of about who I am and my relationship with God, but I don't want to broadcast it too hard. But what about you? How close are you to God? How much of this light that He has prepared and put in all people do you desire? How much are you willing to get close to God so that you will glow? Because that's what Lent season is about. Getting rid of all that stuff between you and God, whatever it is, so that you, like Moses, can get close to God so that you can glow. You know, one thing I don't like about summer is that when you're out on the back porch and you turn the light on, you know, you want some light there. Boy, howdy, that's just an invite, isn't it? To all kinds of bugs, and boy, howdy, let one of them June bugs land in your head or go down your shirt. And man, it's scrambling for all your words because, man, them things are no good down your shirt. Right? They are attracted to the light, aren't they? Imagine that. What if we were these people that were letting our light so shine before people that they were actually attracted to us because of the God light within us? coming to you because they see your light and they're saying, man, I wish I had some of that light. Can you show me how to get it? God has placed His light in each one of us. He has. Don't doubt it for 1 second. The question that you and I must ask ourselves is, how much light of God do we want? I encourage you, and I challenge you this Lent season, to be the people that desire light more than anything else. Let it be the first thing you want in life. And that as you draw close to God, you will glow with the presence of God in your life. People will be attracted to you because there's something special about you, and it's not anything in and of yourself. It's God in you. And as we begin this Lent season, let the light of Christ be your strength, be your power, and be what it is within you that convinces other people that you are glowing with the light of Christ.